Hello, YouTube. I'm just going to do a quick video here to discuss some of the new exciting PC hardware that's coming out this month. As you may or may not know, NVIDIA is launching 3 new models of GPU this month. The first one actually comes out tomorrow. Today is the 16th of January. Tomorrow is the launch of the 4070 Super. So we're just going to compare the specs of the 4070 and the 4070 Super to show the differences, and we're going to kind of bring everything back into the, what's a good value for 3D artists, because I don't think that gets covered as much as gaming and other uses. So everything we talk about on this video is going to be a precursor to that. And then I'm hoping tomorrow when they launch, I can get one. I don't know if they'll sell out. I'm not big enough yet to have early access to these things. Obviously, there's a lot of reviews from the big guys already, but they don't go into the 3D artwork side of it at all, at least not in any amount of depth. So I'm just on NVIDIA's page here. I'm going to close that, and I just have the tech power-up pages to compare the specs here really fast. So on the left side, I have the specs for the 4070. On the right side, I have the 4070 Super. So basically, when NVIDIA launches a Super Series, what they do is they get a better bin chip normally for each model. So that means you're going to have more cores, you're going to have higher clock speed, and then they might make some other little changes to the GPU. And we'll go through all the specifics for the 4070 Super here in a second. But basically, they're better bin versions of the same thing. And almost always, when they launch a Super, it means that you're going to get a better card at the same price as the original card. And this is no exception. So the biggest one here, we'll start off with some of the specs. The core count. So for the 4070, it had 5,888 cores. And the 4070 Super has 7,168. So right off the bat, you're getting a significant bump in the core count. And of course, with the GPU cores, you get everything else. So you get more tensor cores, you get more ray tracing cores, and everything else about the board is fairly similar. The one thing that I don't think they have listed on this page of Tech Power Up is the 4070 Super actually has more GPU cache on it. So instead of 36 megabytes, it's now at 48, and that'll help, especially with things like gaming. But having that extra L2 cache definitely makes a difference in a lot of applications, especially with the 1% low frame rates. But so I'm going to scroll down here. We'll get into the specific specs. So there's just a few that are the biggest point here for 3D artists. Clock speeds are going to be the same. So the boost clock on both cards is 2475. Now, of course, this is for the base model. If you get an OC model from one of the add-in board partners, you'll probably get higher boost clocks out of the box. It looks like the base clock actually does get a little higher on the 4070 Super. It goes from 1920 to 1980. So you'll get some speed right away from that. The memory is the same, so it's still 12 gigs of DDR6X VRAM. We talked about the core count, but these are the big ones here. So for ray trace rendering in applications like Blender, what you really want to look at is the tensor cores and the ray tracing cores. So your tensor cores, it looks like we bumped up from 184 to 224. So we get 40 more tensor cores. And those handle things that involve AI, like denoising. So viewport denoising in Blender or final rendering denoising will be faster with this GPU. And we go from 46 ray tracing cores to 56. So we get 10 more RT cores, and that can make a fairly significant difference in rendering, because everything you're doing with physical-based rendering is making good use of those ray tracing cores. So most of the other specs on here are very similar. There's a couple minor ones. the TDP, which is the thermal design wattage of the 4070, is 200 watts, and they bumped it up to 220 for the 4070 Super. So it will use a little more power, but basically they said they have to do that to get all of the cores to work properly. I would imagine that certain models will make really good efficient use of the extra wattage, and you might get higher clock speeds just for having the ability to draw a little bit more. And then finally, on a lot of the add-in boards for the 4070, they actually used the old 8-pin GPU connector. I think almost all models that I've seen, maybe all of them for the 4070 Super, do use the new 16-pin connector. I wouldn't be afraid of it. I know there was a lot of confusion and fear about it when the 4090 came out. I have a 4090. I've run mine for over a year with no problems. Basically, just make sure when you plug it in, the connector is solidly in place and you can't pull it out unless you deattach the latch on the connector. So if you're able to pull the connector back out of the GPU without pushing the button on there, then it was definitely not tight enough. So I think they've got them figured out to the point where they're not as dangerous now. So just make sure they're plugged in nice and solid, and you should be fine. As far as realistic performance tests, I hope to get one of these cards ordered tomorrow. And if I do, it'll be Wednesday. So probably by early next week, it should be in the mail, and I can do a live stream where we'll actually go through all of the render benchmarks in Blender and compare it to all of my other GPUs that we've tested before. So, but I would say for the 4070 and the 4070 Super, you have two great options. These are really fast GPUs. They compete with the 3080 Ti's and 3090s in raw speed. But the biggest key here is the 4070 is now going to be $550 list price. The 4070 Super is $600. So that's what the 4070 used to be. So basically for $50 more, you get some significant speed boosts. And I think they're between 15 and 20%. If we look at the little relative performance section down here, you can see the 4070 is 86% of the basically the raw horsepower, if you will, which is the FP16 speed. It's about 14% faster to upgrade from the 4070 to the 4070 Super. So it is a measurable difference. And so for $50, you can either get a better deal on an already good card, or you can spend the same list price and get something that's quite a bit faster. Again, same VRAM, so you're not getting any advantage there. But yeah, so for rendering, either one of these cards is a great option. Basically, now you just get to pick if you want to save a little money or to go with a little more speed. But watch for the stream. I hope next week, maybe sooner. I don't know if they'll have any in stock at my Best Buy in town here. So if they do, I'll try to swing in and grab one, and I might even get to it this week. But be watching for that as the next cards come out through the month. We'll also have the 4070 Ti Super and the 4080 Super. I'll do a similar process for each one of those if I can. And then AMD is also launching a 7600 XT, which has 16 gigs of VRAM now instead of 8. So I'm excited to try that one as well. But stick around on the channel, wait for those. I will try to get all of that stuff published as soon as I can get my hands on these cards. But yeah, don't be afraid of any of these. I know the marketing always kind of looks like they're trying to sell you something, which they are. But these new Super Series cards are all winners. They're all good values. And this generation of GPU is just really fast in general anyway. So watch for the next things, and I hope to see you soon.